the Dune trailer. Okay, so full disclosure, we are recording this the day before the Dune trailer releases officially, and I'm the only one who was able to get a link to see the full trailer before it drops. However, these guys were both able to see the reel that got put before it. So they're gonna react to that. I will give a little bit more insight based on the full trailer that we saw, and by the time you guys listen to this, when we drop it, you will have all been able to see the trailer for Denis' new film completely. And one of the conversations we were having before the show even started is whether or not Warner Brothers expects to make a ton of money with Dune, whether Dune is going to make a lot of money. And it looks to me,
specifically because we're getting part 1 of 2, very similar to what happened with It.
Yes, very much so. But also, like, they invested a ton of money in Blade Runner 2049, and it's more big screen, epic storytelling science fiction from Denis Villeneuve, who people know from Arrival, and of course Blade Runner 2049, but a book that has a lot bigger following than probably the Blade Runner franchise.
Do you think is Arrival his most successful film? Sorry, Jake.
No.
Prisoner?
I would say so, because I think it crossed 100 million domestic.
Arrival made 203 worldwide, 102 domestic. I think that might be his most successful film.
Might be. Prisoners.
Oh, actually, no. Technically speaking, Blade Runner 2049 would be because it made 250. I guess technically speaking, I guess if you look at the budget compared to what it made, I don't know.
When it comes to the whole part 1 and part 2 thing, do you guys think that this film that's coming out hopefully this year is going to end in a cliffhanger and sort of a like, oh my god, part 2's, or do you think they're going to play it safe? Because remember with It, like if it had just been on its own. It would have been fine. Like they implied like, okay, we have to come back if we're adults. I like part 2, but it could have just been on its own. And in fact, whenever I don't know if you remember when It ended, the title card actually says It Chapter 1, and I remember people in my theater was like, wait, what do you mean? What do you mean Chapter 1? What does that mean? And I was like, oh, actually they come back, and it's not as good. So I'm curious as to if Dune is going to end with like a Dune chapter, if it's going to imply that there's more to it, or if it's going to be sort of its own self-contained movie.
So so to Jake's question, I then have questions as well, kind of feeding off what Jake is saying. So all right, so to clarify, the movie that Denis made, the 2-part film we're going to see is based on just the first book, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, there's only one book. Are there other books?
There's a bunch
other
of other
Dune
books.
books.
In fact, his son took over it at one point.
Right.
No kidding.
So I guess my question is this. Who on here has read the book? Gabe and Jake?
Did Jake finish it?
Okay.
Jake finished it.
Okay. Where in the first book do you think would be a good breaking point? Like if you do you remember at all like a point in which the story could have like I'm hoping to Jake's
Gabe.
point.
But wait, this is spoilery because I asked Gabe this specifically, and he thinks he knows, but it's a spoiler to kind of reveal it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go that far because I think there are going to be a lot of people that have not read the book that are going to enjoy this.
Okay,
Gabe, I texted you.
So I think that there is a natural point in the story where the first movie can and probably should end.
Do you think it could be there, Gabe?
I think so. I haven't read. I'm about to start rereading it tonight, actually. So I haven't read it in like a decade. But I think what you said is right. I think that'll be like the big third act moment.
If anything, I think they would move that, even if it's not in the middle of the book. I think they would move that forward to have it be a thing that happens.
Right, yeah.
This is a fun conversation for
really
two
fun
people.
For him. I kind of get it.
I actually kind of like it too, and I guess my question is going off of what Jake just asked was, will there be like some kind of like cliffhanger aspect to it? You guys were just talking about that.
But remember,
I hope he doesn't do that.
It one kind of had to play it safe because he hadn't filmed Chapter 2 yet. If if Denis already filmed all of Dune, then it doesn't really like he can have a massive cliffhanger because like they got to come back for part 2.
Technically, he could continue to move the ending until it gets released. Yeah. Technically, if it's all shot. I mean,
but let's talk about the trailer in particular, or what he's leading off with here. And the one thing that really blows me away is just the cast. I mean, the cast is unbelievably stacked. When you just rattle off Timothée Chalamet, obviously as Paul, who's the lead character. I thought it was interesting. Zendaya has been saying in interviews that she's not really in this movie a lot. Like they lead with her in the trailer, and I guess she might be significant to later parts of the story, but she's like a vision that Paul keeps seeing, but I don't think that she's going to be in it as much as people are letting because it's a training bit. Like it's Paul coming up through the ranks and learning to become a leader for his family, and his mentor is Josh Brolin. He's eventually going to, I think, this is the way I'm kind of of pulling this. He's going to end up someplace where he runs into Momoa and Javier Bardem and all these other characters. Is that right, Gabe? Somewhat?
That sounds right. Yeah.
Sounds right?
There's a big shift that I think the book makes sense for two parts. One, it's incredibly dense.
Yeah.
In like a very like Tolkien sense.
You have to use the glossary. You legit have to use the glossary.
But there's so much that happens within the book. It's not like a beginning, middle, and end. There are so many shifts that I think it makes sense for a major shift to happen and then
this is
a second movie.
A question that I asked when I wrote up the story about the trailer, though. Denis is not a filmmaker who waits for the audience to catch up with him. So I really kind of wonder,
like Nolan.
Yeah, like how much is it going to be beneficial for people to read the book before they go? Because I don't think Denis is going to be the type of person who holds your hand. If you're saying it's the type of book that you need to use the glossary to keep up, like, am I going to be totally lost?
Whenever I cracked it open and started reading chapter 1, it feels like you opened it in the middle and just started reading because it very casually uses terminology that there's no way you would know what it means.
But I think that won't be an issue of one. I think that Denis, I think Denis is just an incredible visual storyteller. I think he knows. I think it'll be important to him that the audience be able to enjoy it. Yeah. But so much of the glossary thing that you're doing is because there's not a visual element. There are things where like you see in the trailer, like there's like a woman who's like, teaching him or something like that. But you can see the way that she's dressed and the way that other people are dressed, that she's a part of some sort of organization, like a nun or something like that. Gabe, there's enough visual context clues that I think he can build all the stuff that you would maybe reach for the glossary to be like, okay, what does this random word mean? I think he can kind of fill in the blanks for you visually.
Gabe, give me the story pitch on Dune. If you were to explain it simply.
Can I do it too?
Jake, go ahead.
Like if you were to... I'll be honest with you. I have not seen Lynch's movie, and I do not know a ton about the Dune story. So for me, I'm planning on seeing the film without reading the book. So if you were to pitch that to an audience, how would you explain it?
I would say that this book was a major influence on George Lucas and the first Star Wars. Mm-hmm. So think of Paul Atreides as Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
And he kind of like has to go to Dagobah to train, and he has to sort of learn what it means like to be a Jedi, which is the Dune, like the Dune, or the Dune version of what's going to drive me nuts is if audiences see this and they don't know enough background on it, and they're like, oh, they just ripped off Star Wars.
Yeah.
So that's,
I would say pretty much exactly that. And I think what I usually tell people is that what Tolkien is to like fantasy, Frank Herbert and Dune is to sci-fi fantasy. Like I think it's on that level of invention and sort of world building. It's very big, but exciting.
In that way. Sandworms.
Yeah. Going back to the question about how dense it is and how confusing the film might be, and kind of what Sean was saying. When you're a filmmaker like a Chris Nolan, for example, with Tenet, you obviously have final cut. It's almost like you make the movie you want to make and you just put it out there because your name is that big of a deal. Is Denis at that level? And the reason I ask that is, do you think Denis had to take notes in regards to from the studio saying, I need you to make this a little easier to comprehend. I need you to, because I feel like Nolan probably wouldn't take those notes. I'm assuming that he's just, it's his work.
I don't think Denis has the kind of power over Warner Brothers that Nolan has. In the sense, because I would sort of use the junket comparison. Like if we're at the junket, and we're at the Tenet junket, and we don't get Nolan, we're like, oh my God, like, that's the name. That's a good point. If we're at the Dune junket and we don't get Denis, like, okay, sure, but there are a lot of other people that we could be getting that are, that are equally big names.
Here's the thing, though. I don't think you adapt Dune unless you're going to do it right or don't do it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Tenet is the type of film where if it doesn't make sense to the audience, Nolan made the movie he wanted to make. And like as we're seeing from reactions, people are having trouble understanding some of it and going back and revisiting it. I'm just wondering if Dune's going to be that loose. Like if they're going to let Dune be what it really is, or is it going to be a little bit more geared towards a better understanding?
Well, all right. Well, let me ask a different question too, because until we figure out the plot, how does it look on the big screen? Because I haven't seen, the only thing I've seen is on my laptop.
Oh my God. I've seen the trailer 3 times on the IMAX screen. It is unbelievable. Really? Okay. It is so large. It's so funny because the first thing I think about when the trailer pops up is Seven, because doesn't he say what's in the box? and he has that like sharp thing up against his his temple.
Yeah.
And he essentially said like, and it's like this. I thought it was actually a really interesting teaser. It wasn't your standard like 15-second, 30-second teaser.
And that's
it was
gonna
like
be that's gonna be a very early scene. That's like gonna be within the first 15 minutes. That box scene.
Is that scene from the book?
Oh yeah, that's like first. What would you say, Gabe? Like 10 pages of the book?
Yeah, that's how it opens. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so let me continue asking stupid questions. What are the breathable things from the nose? What are those meant to be in the story?
I wouldn't harp on it.
Is that a spoiler?
Well, I'll give you this. I don't think this is a spoiler. Dune is called Dune because Arrakis is the planet that his family is going to sort of take control over as a part of this galactic empire. And it's a desert planet. And so those are devices to help you survive on a desert planet. I'll go that far. There's more to it. There's more nuance.
There's a whole spice thing.
Yeah. Spice is this big export from that planet. It goes on and on and on. But it's but that's pretty much all it is. I wouldn't look into it too much. There are some things.
Is it similar to why you would need the mask and inversion in Tenet? Like you need
Not
it for the
similar
world
at all.
we're
not
living
in
in?
like a mechanic, not in like a plot mechanic way. That's just like a
Visual choice.
it's important to the people of Arrakis to survive on a desert planet, essentially.
Dude, you ruined it, Gabe. God.
In
Forget
the
it
end,
now.
everyone dies.
Not even
I'm
going.
just playing the person who doesn't know a ton about Dune. I'm just
No,
not.
not at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh,
So
for whatever reason, Michelle's go-to anytime she misunderstands what's happening in a movie, she just thinks characters are dead. I only bring that up because we were watching the Charlie Kaufman movie, which is awful, by the way. And the whole with 30 minutes to go in the movie, she just keeps saying like, "Oh, everyone's dead in this movie. Oh, they're all dead. Oh, this person's been." I don't know why
But did
that's her
you, by
go-to
any
thing.
chance, now I know we're making a tangent, which Gabe asked us not to do. Did you read what the explanation for the book is?
No. Should I?
Here's what I'll say. I did because I'm with you in that I did not understand. I don't know if you guys remember, whenever I was watching it a couple of weeks ago, I was like super, guys, like oh my God, I'm into this. And then by the end, I think I specifically texted you guys, I've never gone so quickly from this movie is on my top 10 list to fuck this movie within such a short amount of time.
It really.
Now I don't think you ever liked it as much as I. Now
no.
You hate it much more than I do by the end, but I don't think you were ever as high on it as I was.
I kept a very open mind for 30, 45 minutes of just because it is really weird. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to let this movie it's Charlie Kaufman, obviously. I'm going to let this movie take me pretty far. And I watched it like, for people who watching the YouTube, I was like this most of the time. Like just trying to figure out like what is
especially
going
in the house.
on. Yeah, and then at one point I just said like I'm gonna stop trying to figure this movie out. I'm just gonna ride the wave, whatever it's on.
At what point did you think of ending the film?
Like with 20 minutes to go is when it finally jumped off the rails, and I just couldn't be like no more. Yeah, I heard you, Kevin. I got you.
I was just looking at the game.
All right. Anyway, we were not talking about that. We were talking about Dune. The trailer is up. You guys can watch it now. In addition to that, yes. What?
How's the trailer? Tell us how it is. You've seen it.
Oh, it's amazing. No, it's amazing. I mean, it looks phenomenal. I don't know what you guys saw as part of the teaser, but most of the same thing. It still just looks like there's a part of it that's heavy on character introduction, right? Like here's Timothée Chalamet, here's Rebecca Ferguson, here's Oscar Isaac.
Well, there's a lot of that in the the teaser was sort of like his hand in the box with the needle to him. And then it sort of felt like it was quick cuts of like, here's all the people we have in this movie.
But did you get the great Pink Floyd song? The haunting version of Pink Floyd? It's Dark Side of the Moon. They have a new, I don't know whose cover it is, but they use a version of Dark Side of the Moon in the trailer, and it's phenomenal. It just fits the visuals. So it's great. It's like the first half is like character montage introduction, and then it hits a moment where it's like, boom, here's just all of the big screen Denis stuff that's coming in. It's like ships and deserts and Momoa with a knife and all this amazing stuff. And then it ends with the sandworm. Did you see the sandworm? Did they show the sandworm? The sandworm's not in? Okay, so the trailer ends on a massive sandworm, but with a perspective shot of two characters, and one of them's Timothy, and I think the other one might be Momoa. I'm not sure. And in the frame, the way that they are with this sandworm, it's massive and it's amazing. It's great. It's great. And it looks incredible, and I can't wait for you guys to see it. It's gonna be really, really phenomenal. So anyway, Dune.